Greetings. Welcome to another edition of the Talkin Tomahawk podcast. I am Seth, and I have with me today our in-house MLB draft expert and former editor of the spiel. Alan knows what he is talking about, and that's why he is here to educate us all on how the Atlanta Braves did in the draft and why they did some of the things they did. And I'm here to sit under your learning tree. Sprinkle leaves on me today, Alan. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine, and you flatter me. I hope I can live up to that hype. We'll see how it goes.
Well, you did teach me everything I know about writing about the Atlanta Braves.
Well, you do well, and let me tell you, of all the students we've had over the years, you've been right at the top. So, but enough of this self-aggrandization that we're doing. Let's see what we got going here because it was a busy week for the Braves.
It sure was. We're not even going to get into the all-star activities, which were lots of fun. We're going to jump straight to the draft because that's where we're moving forward and we're looking toward the future. And there's so much talk about what's next if this season's over. And boy, we just added all these players. So we need to start learning about who we added and why we added them. And I think the most notable thing is that for the first time, I believe since 2019, the Atlanta Braves did not take a pitcher with their very first pick.
Yeah, that was somewhat surprising, but at the same time, it's also characteristic of what we've seen in the minor leagues. The fact that the Braves are woefully short on quality position players as prospects, and they were taking obvious moves to try and address that this year. Um, we saw three straight shortstops taken, and at the same time, yeah, you get shortstops because they're the great athletes. They really are typically the best guys on the field at the high school level and close to that at the college level. So getting those guys means that you've got athletes who can sometimes play other positions too. And that's probably going to be the case for some of these guys that were chosen by the Braves this time. So um, the question then is, well, who do they take and why do they take him? Um, Part of the problem that the Braves ran into is that this particular draft class was just chock full of shortstops. They were the Braves picked in the first round at number 22 overall, but by that time, 11 shortstops had already been taken off the board. What we saw was the Nationals starting it off with the number and these rankings that I'm going to give are by MLB Pipeline, so don't take them as gospel truth, but they're at least one reference point. The Nationals took a guy who's ranked number 5. The Rockies, with a fourth pick, took their number 1 guy. The Miami Marlins took number 6. The Toronto Blue Jays took number 9. Reds took number 12, White Sox number 7, Giants number 21, the Rays number 13, the Minnesota Twins number 15, and the Arizona Diamondbacks number 14. That gets us down to pick number 21, where the Astros then also took the 25th ranked guy, and that left the Braves kind of holding the bag a little bit. That took out an entire tier of shortstops. So who do they go with? They end up with Tate Salvacine from Basic High School in Nevada at ranking of number 39. That was the next guy that was available after the Astros pick, with one exception, and that was a guy who fell off the board almost out of round one from the University of Arkansas. We'll skip over him, but the Braves ended up getting Salvacine at number 39, and then for their second pick in the 60th slot, they ended up with the very next guy on MLB Pipeline's board, who was uh, Alex Lodi's at ranking number 6. I'm ranking number 43. So they got two very solid guys that could probably stick at shortstop. They're probably bat first guys, but they're not slouches at shortstop either. Are they going to be Nick Allen kind of quality at shortstop defensively? Probably not, but they should be pretty good quality in terms of hitting. Maybe a Dansby Swanson kind of a level of hitting. So that's not bad. Third round guy, I think they picked because he was going to be an underslot guy. And I'll explain what that entails a little later. And it's the fourth round guy I want to highlight a little bit. It's the first pitcher they took, the first non-shortstop they took. Guy by the name of Briggs McKenzie, a high school pitcher out of North Carolina. He is probably a first round talent. He was signed or committed to LSU, and that should tell you right there the kind of quality he possesses. But the Braves probably saw him as a risk in terms of signing, so they ended up taking him in the fourth round, and they have managed to save a little bit of money so that he can try and get him signed without risk losing that slot money um, as part of their draft pool. Um, Let me go ahead and discuss how the draft pool and the draft monies work. The Braves have a total of about $9.1 million that they can spend on bonuses for the guys that they've drafted. That's all the first 20 picks or first 10 picks. Uh, they need to allocate that money appropriately. Trouble is, if you sign a guy who you think may not, or if you draft a guy who may not sign with you, there's a risk of losing him and the money associated with that slot pick. So, for instance, the first pick they made, Southacene, uh, that slot was worth about almost $4 million, 3.9 million and change. They have signed him. That's news today that I hadn't seen anywhere, but Baseball America reports that he has been signed for 2.6 million. That saves the Braves 1.36 million on that pick. They have also reportedly been signed or have now signed the second and third round shortstops as well. Salvacine is reportedly at 1.3 million. That's underslot by a quarter mil. And Cody Miller, the third guy, has been signed for about 300,000, 297.5. That's underslot by half a million. Now you add up all those underslot numbers, and that gives you about $3 million that they have. Plus, they actually going to save some more in some later picks. They can throw some money at Briggs McKenzie now in that pitcher in the fourth round and see if he'll be willing to give up his commitment to LSU. $4 million is going to be tough to walk away from, or even three. They probably have somewhere between 3 and 4 that they could throw at him now. And if they can do that, they'll probably get a first round talent in that fourth round slot. So that's a pretty good deal for the Braves. And if they end up not signing him, they only would lose the right to spend 600,000, and that's why they pick him in the fourth round and not try and get him in the first round. I hope that makes
Hmm.
sense. But the
Yeah.
upshot is that the Braves have signed their first three picks and now the eighth, ninth, and 10th round picks, and they've saved a bunch of money in those picks as well. I'll
It's
stop for
stuff
a
like
while.
that that it makes the MLB draft so interesting. But let me see if I understand this correctly. Then, when you when you like our first pick, um, he was ranked according to MLB Pipeline. I mean, he was projected to go much further along in the draft, right?
Yes.
And so the incentive to take a guy early, in effect, essentially the Braves are telling him, "Hey, you don't really deserve to go here. So we're going to pay you maybe more than what you were going to get, but not what we have to spend here, and you're going to like it." And then they go, "Yeah, okay."
That's not a bad way to put. Well, actually, it's kind of a creepy way to put it to some extent, but it essentially is right. Yes, you get a guy who gets the prestige of being a first round pick or second round pick, whatever. It's higher than in theory his draft status would have normally been if everybody had gone according to form. And of course, too, there's also the fact that this is MLB Pipeline's reckoning on the draft projections, and they all teams are going to look at their guys differently. They may be really high on a particular player and sign him just simply because they're afraid of losing him and not having him available the next round. But there's a lot of strategies that go along with this, and in this particular instance, I think the Braves had two things going. Number one, the need for position players. Number two, the fact that a lot of shortstops had already been taken, and therefore they ended up with some guys that were probably a little less ranked, but they really wanted to get them before the rest of them got snapped up.
Well, so what is the incentive though for, let's say, South Osine to take something, to take an offer that far under the slot value?
Well, sometimes it's about leverage. High school players probably have the most leverage because they can always reject a an offer and go into college. The same kind of thing happens for eligible underclassmen. If you got a guy who's in his fourth year in college, though, he pretty much runs out of leverage because he's pretty much done with the draft at that point. So some of these guys that you see coming out of college that are 20, almost 22 years old and all, they're essentially done and they don't have much leverage left. So it's like you get drafted, you pretty much sign with whatever you're offered. Uh,
South
the other
Osine was though coming out of high school.
South Seed was coming out of high school, so he has some leverage. But at the same time, he was drafted better than his brother, and he was a little bit more highly regarded. But also, he essentially signed for just about his rankings money rather than where he was drafted. So uh, sometimes teams will go to a guy and say, "Hey, I like you, but I want to find out if you'll be willing to sign for X amount of dollars." So sometimes these kind of deals get done ahead of time, and I think that may have been the case here as well.
So it kind of does go back to what I was saying earlier.
Yes, it
Okay.
can. It can very much so.
All
Uh,
right. Okay. Well, why don't we take a little bit, a few moments here, and just kind of run through the top few picks the Braves had, and get a little bit of background on who those players are, and then we can get your thoughts on it. On who on, well, just your thoughts on those players. It's hard to tell. Look, we were talking about this earlier, though. It's so hard to tell. Like it's just so hard. Everybody's good. Let's just get that out of the way. Any stats that we read off, it's all going to be taken with a grain of salt. The competition levels are just not professional. And everybody's good or they're not getting drafted, right? And so it's really hard to judge all these, at least from my perspective. But luckily, Alan has been around and knows his stuff enough that he can tell you who's going to be the next superstar.
well, a lot of these things too, you look at the college stats or even the high school stats, and that's not the complete picture. Um, let's take South Esteem to begin with. He's out of Nevada. You don't get you see, yeah, I know guys like Bryce Harper came out of Las Vegas. Still, he didn't get his biggest competition out of Nevada. South Esteem, same thing. These guys are on the travel ball circuits, and they got their competition there. You get some wood bat leagues sometimes. You get a lot of zip code leagues, uh, or sorry, area code leagues, and that's where you see a lot of the competition, and it's there where you get the scouts that are looking at you and where you see the best competition overall. College, it is a little different because you do get, at least during the league, you get the competition out of that league. But even so, most universities will have one or two good pitchers on the front line, but by the time you get to maybe the third or fourth game in a series, you're dealing with some guys that are not quite as good, and you can sometimes load up on the stats there. So you want to look at things like the league. Are you playing out of the SEC, which always seems to have great teams? Are you playing out of the ACC, which has a lot of good teams? Or are you playing it at Yeah, well, we drafted a guy from William and Mary. I'm not sure what kind of competition his team saw, but you have to take all that into consideration. So it's the full body of work. It's not just a particular stat sheet, and that's why this is so interesting, difficult, and sort of fascinating, and why scouts' jobs are not to be envied, to be honest.
Yeah, and we talked about that's high school in Nevada and the competition there, and sometimes you have guys who play in those states that aren't as well known for baseball, like it is here in Florida or states like that, and then they need to go to college to prove themselves, and yet we just took this shortstop with our first pick who went to a high school called Basic High School, which I had to check and make sure was correct, but actually I guess I'm listening to you, talk, and I get what you're saying about the competition levels. Basic high school is actually I read it is I'm not sure if this is exactly accurate, but it's the top 25 high school I guess in the country. As far as their baseball program. So how does that happen? Do you have any clue, or is that beyond what we're prepared to talk about today? How does a Nevada high school end up in the top 20 in the country?
Well, it's the same reason that you get places like IMG Academy in Florida that is a top high school in the country. You get these places that are essentially magnets and set themselves up as baseball academies, and their draw is the fact that you get premium coaching, you get premium equipment, and premium competition. And the best of the best go to these kind of high schools. So just because it may sound like it's basic, may mean anything but. And that's, that there are a few like that around the country, and you consistently see guys that are coming out of these places, and that just continues to fuel their own pipeline of kids coming into high school and flourishing when you see guys like that get drafted. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's our man. He's out of Basic High School, one of the top high schools in the country, and obviously the number one high school in Nevada. Um, he is 18 years old right now. Tate Southacene. You might have mentioned his brother was drafted last year by the Cubs. Ty, also Southacene. Uh, Ty actually was the shortstop last year for the high school team. Got drafted. Tate went from center field to shortstop. Lots of positive notes on his athleticism, playing two of the most defensively demanding positions for one of the top high school teams in the country. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna repeat ourselves a lot talking about these guys. They all these guys play shortstop. They all are athletic. They've all got tools, every tool we could ask for, and they all hit for power. Or at least they did in the previous season. But that is our number one pick, Tate Southacene. The second one is a very interesting one, and I've seen some analysis on him saying this guy might be the most major league ready player that we got in the draft. And he's coming out, it's Alex Lodis, and he's coming out of Florida State, and he will be 22 next season when the season begins. And with 3 NCAA seasons under his belt, he faced some ACC competition. He won ACC Defensive Player of the Year. He also took home the Dick Howser Trophy. If you don't know, that is the baseball version of the Heisman Trophy it's the top player in college baseball. So he's got a hell of a resume, and he did face some good competition. And the glove, the overall best player with the Dick Howser Trophy. He hit 394 with a 462 on base and a 705 slug, 17 homers, 18 doubles, 3 triples. He stole 6 bases, and he did not get caught. What do you think about this pick? Is there a chance this guy ends up being the better player than our first round pick?
Better player. That's an interesting question. The trick with any of these draft picks is that it could be 3, 4, 5 years before we see them even sniff the majors, if at all, especially of course for the lower round guys. But the first 3, 4 round guys, you really do want to see them excel, and you really pick them because you think they will become major leaguers. I admit, with a guy that got a resume like that, I'm surprised that he fell to number 60. But I do think that he is a good chance to stick at shortstop. I think he's got a good chance to be a quarterback of an infield like a Dansby Swanson. I think he's got a chance to have some pop in his bat. Obviously, he's got a few things to work on and work out in terms of a professional career, but they've got a couple of years to do that. So, um, I, do I think he could be the first guy to the majors? That's a possibility, particularly given the situation that the Braves have at shortstop right now, which is essentially dark hole. So, uh, is he going to be rushed? I don't believe that, but I do think a couple of years he could be knocking on the door there. Yes. So, I mean, your next guy, um, let's go ahead and talk about the third round pick, Cody Miller from East Tennessee State. He was signed, I think, more specifically to be the underslot kind of guy. My gut feel is that he is more of a second baseman than these other guys. Um, in terms of MLB pipeline rankings, he didn't even make the board. He was more above ranking number 250. Again, the Tate Southesine was number 39. Number 43 was where Alex Lodi's went. So the fact that Cody Miller was such a difference is well, sometimes these kind of things put a chip on somebody's shoulder, but at the same time, I not expecting great things from him, but you never know sometimes. So there we go with that.
We'll
Did
go
he?
through the empty exercise of talking about how good he was at East Tennessee. Is that, yeah, East Tennessee State last year? He hit 331 with a 430 on base and a 623 slug. If it's hard to tell the difference between these numbers, sometimes, yeah, they all blend together. He did steal 27 bases, and he is the fourth highest draft pick in school history. Uh,
Hmm.
he did play in the Cape Cod League to face some more difficult competition, and there the numbers did drop. You know, it's a fairly small sample size, but he wasn't the same player. He hit 261, 333 OBP, and he slugged 449 in that sample size in the Cape Cod League. And yes, he was unranked, and he went in the third round. And that's probably, like you said, that's one of those situations where they're like, "Hey, you're gonna take what we tell you. You're gonna, yeah, right? Like, you want to be a baseball player, guy."
Sometimes you take these guys to be lottery tickets as well.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Cape Cod League. That is a wood bat league. And when you get wood bats for the first time or so, sometimes you expect the numbers to drop, particularly when you increase the competition there as well. So the fact that he held his own seems to be a good sign. But I think utility infielder might be his professional title when we get down the road here a little bit.
Let me ask you real quick. Intermission here. Real quick question, Alan. Wood bats in high school, college, and in little league. Should we get rid of aluminum bats and just go with the pure wood?
If it were up to me, I would say yes, but there's a financial factor there too. Most of these high schools in particular just simply can't afford to buy wooden bats. They buy the aluminum or composite bats that they've got simply because they can buy them once and keep them for years. If you had to go out and buy wood bats all the time, your program would be in dire shape. So I'm afraid that what we've got is what we're going to have to keep going with because it's just a matter of a financial burden on these guys, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that wasn't very fun. So, okay, we'll
Sorry.
move on. And by the way, you can read about just a recap of all of our the Braves draft picks at talkintomahawk.com. We've got just kind of the first few picks have a brief explanation of who they are, a little bit about them, and you can see some videos of them in action if you want to catch up on everybody that the Braves chose in this draft. Moving on to looks like we're on round four here. This is your boy. I'm just gonna step away and let you start talking about your man, Briggs McKenzie.
Well, I don't know how much my man he is, but high school pitcher out of North Carolina. And the intriguing thing I see about him is that he is a guy who could spin the ball. That's something that's harder to teach. Most of the time, you get guys who are, fastball um, specialists when they're drafted. This guy can spin at 3,000 RPM. And even if he can't quite command a fastball or even the rest of his pitches, they've got time to teach that. And fastballs are much easier to at least learn in the minor league level. It's harder to teach a guy to spin it. And if he's already got that skill, that puts him ahead of the curve, so to speak. The bad pun, I suppose, but
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
the essence is the fact that he's a little bit ahead in terms of that development, and if he can get some increased velocity with some better mechanics and some repetition and better coaching. Not to say that he had bad coaching, but you always want to get some additional work in to be able to improve yourself. That's the idea behind the minor leagues. If they can get that for him, I think they might have something there. Is he going to be front line of the rotation? That's probably stretching his his overall skill level, but I think middle of the rotation, back in the rotation certainly is possible. At worst, he's probably Bryce Elder. At best, he might be AJ Smith-Shawver, somebody in that realm. But let's see how it goes. The fact that he's got a curveball that works very well right now, as I say, should help him very much. So that's why I think he's a first round talent.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Like you were saying earlier too, he was. They're basically buying out his college years and saying just go ahead and come to us because the Braves must believe this guy is going to be a first round pick that they're getting in the fourth round. So hopefully that works out. That sounds like a good deal to
Yeah.
me. And then the next pick was the second baseman. We were talking about that. Do you see a lot of second basemen like? Because the shortstops are athletic and versatile, and you can move them around. How often do we see actual second basemen from college get drafted?
Not very often, and I kind of am concerned about that for Dixon Williams here. It may be that he just simply didn't have the arm for the shortstop position. He played it a little bit, but ended up essentially settling at second base. He could perhaps play the outfield a little bit, but if he ends up at a center field kind of position, then that might work. Corner outfield, you really want some good power. Um, in general, at least that's the going norm for corner outfielders. So again, I'm thinking maybe utility infielder kind of position here. If there's something mechanically that he could improve on, then perhaps shortstop might work. But when you got the other two shortstops ahead of him, at least, I think that second baseman may be his ceiling here as well, or utility infielder, that kind of a thing. And that's not bad. You need those kind of guys in the organization. So I'm not expecting he be a breakout kind of guy, but there's always a possibility.
He's an interesting. He's got some tools. I mean
Yep.
he did hit 14 homers. He stole 22 bases. I mean, obviously, all the numbers are going to look good, or you wouldn't see him here, but he walked 17% of his plate appearances, and he struck out fewer times than he walked, and had an extra base hit every 7.89 at bats last year. So he's interesting. You got to expect there's something they like in the bat, taking a second baseman like that. So
Yeah.
um, did you want to keep going on? You got any more notes on the draft, or do we need to move on to the next subject?
Well, we got probably less than 10 minutes to go. So I can tell you that the eighth, ninth, and 10th round guys have signed for $7,500, $2,500, and $2,500 respectively. That has saved the Braves roughly, I'm going to say about half a million that they can throw at Briggs McKenzie again. So that's good news to hear. So they're well on their way in trying to put together a package for the kid. Um, I don't see any particular standouts in the rest of the draft that need to be highlighted, but uh, that kind of brings us to the next possibility for a quick topic, which is who's going to still be with the Atlanta Braves next week? What do you think there,
Well,
Seth?
before we move into that, I got to ask you,
Okay.
what is your least favorite name from the draft to pronounce?
Ooh, probably Landon Beidelshees.
Hmm.
Six round pitcher, drafted number 187 overall out of the University of Arkansas. Uh, we also drafted a kid named Braunschweig, which almost sounds like liverwurst, but not quite. But Beidelshees, I think, takes the cake there in the pronunciation derby.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like an old WWF tag team. Vital She's in Braunschweig coming at you live. So,
That are attorneys at law.
oh yeah, no, I could see that. Vital She's in Braunschweig. Okay, so now that we've got that important question out of the way, yeah, we could talk about the trade deadline coming up. It looks like we're going to be sellers.
Afraid
You
so.
wrote an article about you went ahead and just cashed it in early, and you already put out an article with your probabilities and your projections on Braves players that what are the odds that they're going to be traded, and it's a popular topic right now. People are reading it. You have some good insight on it. Alex Anthopoulos did say he's not interested in trading long-term contracts away, but we do have veterans. And you named a few that I think a lot of people aren't talking about. We all know about Ozuna and Iglesias, and by the way, Ozuna, the last 5 games before the All-Star break, looked like he was coming back to life.
Starting to get there.
If he keeps that up, we might be able to send him away and get something in return.
Yeah.
And but other than that, I know that we don't probably need to. I'd like to get into some of the other names on your list because I found some of those interesting because I'm not seeing a lot of chatter about them.
Yeah, Pierce Johnson is probably the most likely, I think, among the rest, and that's because he's been pretty good the last couple weeks to a month. And anybody who has a good, solid reliever available is going to get phone calls. Um, as far as others like Aaron Bummer, I know the Braves would love to move him. I think it's going to be difficult to do, particularly because he's got a kind of a poison pill clause of a 9.5 million, I think it was, in it for a contract next year. That's not a buyout or an option thing. It's 9.5 million, and that's going to be difficult to sell. The Braves might be able to sweeten that pot a little bit if they want to send some money somebody else's way. But beyond that, I think it's going to be difficult to move him, particularly since he hasn't really been pitching that well lately. Um, could Ozzy Albies be moved? I think that's not likely. He does have two option years coming up in 26 and 27. So technically, he's not really long term, but at the same time, he's also cheap, frankly. So the Braves would probably want to keep a hold of him, particularly since there's not really a lot of other second basemen that you might want to grab around the league that might be available. Um, People have been talking about Sean Murphy. I don't think he's going anywhere. The
Please, no.
Yeah, the Braves could do a lot worse than a Murphy Baldwin tandem. Um, my ranking is Iglesias almost certainly gone, Ozuna probably gone. One thing real quick, we only got a couple of minutes that for me to do this, but you can look at my article on this for the details, but I do think that the Braves, being in the position they are with relative to luxury tax, do not want to take on any salary at this time. Number one, it wouldn't be productive. It wouldn't move the team. I mean, the difference between fourth and third place, who cares?
Yeah.
Second is They don't want to go over the luxury tax threshold and be subject to a 50% tax next year. If they stay under it like they are now by a little bit, then they can reset that and be back to a net zero tax penalty next year, even if they do increase the payroll, and they should. But what they can do is take the salaries remaining for Iglesias and Ozuna and write a check to whoever wants to get them this month, and that opens up the possibility that other teams who can't afford to pay that $5 million that's left on both those guys' contracts and gets a decent prospect in return. I think that's what they're going to do. I think that would help replenish the farm system and set the Braves up for next year and perhaps beyond.
Makes all the sense in the world. I sounds like we're running out of time, so I think that's a good place to end it.
Very good. I appreciate the chat, and we'll just look forward to seeing what happens the next couple of weeks with the trade deadline looming.
That's right. So, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure you're tuning in or checking out the website, talkintomahawk.com. You'll see the updates for the podcast. You're going to see updates. We got the trade rumors going. We've got transactions. Alan's probably going to write something about how we're signing all these guys for far less money than we need to, and they're going to take that money and they're going to like it. And this podcast has been brought to you today by Carter Family Insurance. You can go to carterfamilyinsurance.com. If you own a business and you're a Braves fan, you can do business with me, a fellow Braves fan, and we do business in all 50 states for business insurance. And make sure you check out our friends Chris Medlin and Johnny Venters at legacysportcomplex.com. Check out what they're up to. If you're in Georgia, you can go see their facilities and train where the legends are.
Thanks so much, Seth. We'll do it again next week.
Okay, you all be good.